Hello and welcome to Mostly Minnesota Music Podcast Edition. I'm Ann Tracy and I'm here with my co-host,
Heather Baker.
And we are here with Sonia and Travis Eben of Lovely Dark.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, well, we're delighted. And I'm just going to start by saying you've got a couple of EPs coming out and I want to talk about those. But before we even get to that point, tell us a little bit about yourselves and the band and all that good stuff.
Okay, well, we've been a band for over 10 years. And before Travis and I even got married, we were in the band together. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like some of these relationships with the band members are the second longest relationships that I have with people, you know. So we're all really close, and this is now, how many albums have we actually put out?
This is going to be basically the fourth full length. Before that, we played in a group called Buffalo in Minneapolis. And then after that, we were sitting on a whole bunch of songs that we were just going to basically record at home, and then ask some friends, and then kind of that exploded into the first record, and then that changed into, kept rolling to the second and third. And then with this one, we just decided just to kind of spread it out because we weren't really sure exactly with the pandemic and everything else. So just try to get a little visibility and also kind of splinter it thematically. So
yeah.
That's what I think is so interesting about, you've got 3 EPs and they really, it feels very much like a journey, but it very much in chapters. And I'm just gonna, I could be wrong as all get out. Like with Spindle, I felt there was a lot of kind of salvation and truth and savage and then like the Ruler, I really thought it was more of a kind of some otherworldliness, and then kind of get to Shears and it's just it's way more sensual. I mean that in a human way than just like a sexy way, you know, but it's just very much a very so tell me, now that I've made my guesses, but that's kind of what I got out of the 3 chapters. Tell us what you put into it.
Well, you're so right when you say that, you know, it's intended to be a journey, because that's kind of what I set out. Well, what we set out, we talked about it. We write the songs mostly together. The whole band contributes, but as far as like writing lyrics and the actual like basic song structure, usually the songs start in our basement with maybe like a little guitar riff that Travis comes up with, and I'll just kind of hum over the top of it. But while we were talking about writing this record, I really wanted it to be more personal, like some more, you know, things that we actually had experienced in our lives, because we tend to write about kind of like big picture stuff. And so, this, for me, it ended up being a lot about sort of like the journey of what, like a hero's journey, but like the heroine's journey. And and I think that, I don't really know how, we kind of ended up shuffling some of the songs around, so it's not necessarily like that story arc plays through in all 3 of the EPs perfectly, because we kind of had to pick and choose what sounded right together. But the story's there. It's just kind of like Pulp Fiction, where it's all scrambled around.
And then for the for the title, we were throwing around different ideas, and it's hard to get 6 members of a band to agree.
Yeah.
So like the overarching one was Perfectly Alive, which was selected prior to the pandemic, and then just kind of funnily kept with it. And then we were trying to figure out like for the triptych, because it's the journey in life. It's with like the 3 fates, like the the Hercules cartoon, the moray of like, you know, the mother maiden, the crone with the yarn, the fate sealers. So you have the ruler, the ruler, the shears, and the spindle, basically as reference to those.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and that makes the art, the visual art to this is so striking as well.
Yeah, and I don't know if you're aware of this, but Travis did all of that as well.
I was thinking that maybe because it's so close to what the music is.
Yeah, and it was funny because we were really like shopping around trying to find an artist, and we kept finding people that we thought were perfect, and then it didn't work out. And Travis was finally just like, well, why don't I just do it? And he did it at like in little bits and spurts, like in bed and like on the couch or watching movies, and I would just glance over and be like, oh my God, that's amazing. Like, you really nailed it there. So yeah. using
I mean,
multi-talented
I'm assuming this is not your first art project. I mean, it's amazing.
It's thanks. It's been I went to school at the university too for art and English, so it's something that eventually I want to get back to it, but it's something that's it's always it's for me myself. I love playing music because it allows you to connect both with our relationship and also with friends, and then to have something at the end of it that's something where it's your art project that's able to go out and venture in and change shape, and also kind of take the best elements of things that snowballs down the hill.
Mhm.
So with it being during the pandemic, it was kind of like, all right, let's dust off these art skills and just check if it's still all right.
Yeah.
So they're working on it, and that's one of the things that eventually what we're going to do is going to print it as basically all like a book. So it's going to have the art on one side, and there's more art on the other side with lyrics, and then like the downloads and stuff like that eventually.
Mhm.
So
Figured why, go big or go home. Make it into like
That's fantastic.
a whole piece
mhm.
that somebody can purchase and or obtain and look at and hopefully enjoy.
I was going to say both Ann and I went to a theatrical dance production this summer called Wonderland, and it was around Alice in Wonderland and all the characters and their mental health and like the movement and theatrical. And when I was listening to your album, I could totally see something like that, just the movement and the journey that you take and the different perspectives. It's beautiful. So I love to hear that you are creating a book too, because your mind just goes with it too while you're listening.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely love to tell a story, I think, with our music, with every piece that we've ever put out. It always it starts out personal, and then somehow it ends up sort of diverting and becoming more mythic. I don't really know how to say it exactly, but we find a way, hopefully, to tie like our own personal experiences with kind of the universal experience. And I think that's part of the reason why it lends itself well to, we would love to like work with dancers or other visual artists and make it into, I don't know, weave all those different elements together.
And with Alice in Wonderland, one of the main illustrators from that was a guy named Arthur Rackham, and it was a really big influence to myself. And it's a couple of years ago, I actually got a half sleeve of one of his works from his work on Peter Pan, basically.
Yeah.
Oh.
So. You got a big old tattoo of a baby Peter
Well, no,
Pan.
I feel like if you have short sleeves, you got to show us a little bit.
So,
I mean, if you're wearing a
show and tell.
So this is Peter Pan. This is Solomon Ka.
He's a crow.
And there's some mice down here.
Ah.
Basically, what the story was Solomon, or in the original Peter Pan, he got put on, floated downstream to an island. He wrestled, woke up in the island of birds, and then the birds raised him. And after a little while, he started trying to figure out where he fit in. And then finally, he decided he wanted to be a bird. So he went to Solomon Ka, which was the old raven. And Solomon Ka told him that I can teach you the ways of the birds, but if you do, you'll forever be betwixt and between the world of bird and men. So I always just like the idea of always kind of that transitive nature of like always kind of stuck in between.
Yeah.
So. And
I think it's, the power comes in the transitional spaces and those like liminal times. And I think that's really powerful. And it's a theme that comes up a lot over and over again in our lives. So it's very appropriate. Mm-hmm. I'm glad he has that.
Well, I mean, there are clearly strong mythology behind the whole work.
Mm-hmm.
I think in that transition, and as you said, the heroine's transition and this, and I've clearly been listening to it for a while. The song that just really struck me today was Here, and it was I'm not afraid to disappoint you.
Yeah.
That is a feminist cry if I've ever.
Yeah, definitely. Yes. And it's funny, I feel like we really worked together on that song. Like that song was really like a strong collaboration between us, because like I feel like each of us would do a little work on it and then we'd get stuck. But I'm trying to think like what really inspired that song. I don't know. I read Women Who Run with the Wolves. I'm sure like a lot of people have heard of that book. I just looked up the author, Clarissa Pinkola Estes. And it's sort of like, if ever there was an answer to like the Joseph Campbell hero with 1,000 faces, this is sort of like the heroine of 1,000 faces. And I know that I was like deep in that book when I wrote that song, or when we wrote that song together. Yeah. So definitely, it has a real feminist vibe.
And visually, the thing that Sonia cued into was the roadside grave markers, the white crosses you see on the sides of the roads.
Mm-hmm. And sort of like the idea that there are all these different like selves that you leave behind as you move through your life, and like you have to leave behind pieces of yourself in order to grow as a person. And that, I think, was a theme that carried through even as we continued to change and morph that song over time. Mm-hmm. That's sort of the imagery that I started with that song. Yeah, so I don't know if you got any of that.
Yeah, no, I did. Well, as I said, it was just that line today that really just struck me so well, because you have to really be to a point if you don't care if you disappoint someone, you know.
Yeah.
You have to own your own self.
Exactly. Yes. Mm-hmm. And like, I think that that's a huge part of becoming a grown woman, you know, is like you reach a point where you're not going to make everybody happy and you're done with trying, you know, and you're just saying, well, I'm not afraid to disappoint you. I'm not afraid to be myself anymore, even if that it maybe is disappointing to like certain people in your life, like your parents or your ex-boyfriend or your professor, you know. Sometimes you just have to be you.
Mm-hmm. There's vulnerability into saying, here I am tonight.
Yeah,
like showing up to it and being present, just like, this is what I am.
Yeah, and that song in the beginning was, I honestly don't remember where it ended up in the whole like shuffle of EPs.
The last one.
Okay, yes, it was intended to be the last song or one of the last songs for sure, because the story arc kind of ends there with that sense of, here I am, this is me, and I'm a whole person.
I think that's fantastic. It's another song that really struck me is Weave and the Woven.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and mostly because it's I mean, it feels like a very Catholic, a very Celtic, a very, you know, I mean, which is
it's a Catholic.
it was right in my wheelhouse, that kind of stuff, you know. But it's you've done so well with it, so I would like to hear a little bit more about where that came from too. I mean, it's
if originally, like how I envisioned that song was, imagine like, it can never be anything simple. So imagine if it was a play, like that would be the elements of like, you know, the chorus sets the stage. So that would be like the face in the crowd, kind of like saying the stage of like, you know, the weave and the woven. The title takes place from probably I'll be shunned, but a Clive Barker book. I always love the notion of like, you know, like the pulling in different elements to make something new and whole. Kind of, it's almost like a dark Wonderland type of vibe. Mm-hmm. Well, like that itself in general is like, I almost imagine like the chorus, the Fates singing a song about the state of the world. So the music came from my kind of, you're right, with like there's a very much an Irish tradition, Irish melody behind it. And then like it goes through the different routes where it like talks about elements of what's happening today, especially with the youth before things change. So it's you know, alludes to stuff like Columbine, like obviously school shootings and other stuff like that. So just kind of like, hopefully more deftly. I used to be in punk bands, and I used to be really overt with lyrics, and then it's been I went the other extreme, and now we're trying to find some way where if you you know, can
thread the needle between saying what you mean and, you know, like directly, and then also not being like overly flowery with language.
It's hard to rhyme with statistics.
Yeah, somewhere between kill the poor and, you know,
yeah, and that was all Travis. The lyrics for that song were all him, and the melody was actually taken from a traditional song, which was played with a little bit, but I do think we actually stuck pretty close to the original melody. And then the harmonies were kind of mostly mine, and some collaboration with other singers too.
I was gonna say, I'm drawn to the lights on the wire. I love the one lyric of the no darkness can hide us. I mean, I love a lot of it, but that, I mean, you just have like little zingers that are just like, ooh.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about that one at all? I mean, that one again was one that you started. I think that you started writing it, and then we worked on it together to kind of tool it.
Yeah, that one. I guess it was more kind of along the lines. It was. I mean, anything that was written a few years ago has a
Heavily influenced by the Trump era.
a political tinge to it, you know. So
whether directly or indirectly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, for many, yes. The whole
so
of,
a lot of
yeah.
that is like basically calling truth to power of like, you know, I call to the wild-eyed children and I call false kings and queens.
Yeah.
So it's just like basically, you know, there's something inherent, especially in the youth, that they can spot out if there's something wrong. And with that, it's just like, you know, a lot of the turmoil that's going on, it just feels like you have to go through the bad stuff to get to the good. So it's shining a light to it. So you have to shine a light to the darkness to see kind of what the world actually is. And hopefully after that, you can branch together and move forward.
Yeah. And that idea, you know, as Bob Marley said, you can fool people sometime, but you can't fool all the people all the time. Like that just kept running through my head the whole like Trump presidency, you know, like you can fool some people, but yeah, I mean, like eventually the light is going to come and shine on what is real and what is true. And hopefully that appeals to people.
That is so interesting that you got Bob Marley through the Trump. I feel like it made you in a sort of a safe space because whenever you put that on, you're just like, okay, it's going to be all right.
For sure. I leaned heavily on reggae at times throughout that last 4 years. And still, yeah.
No, I kind of love that. I might have to copy that of you. And I do love the 2 drums you have been tell me how this happened because I love it so much.
Thank you.
We started off 10 years ago. Our first practice ever was January 1st, 2011, which stays in your mind because 11111. And then before that, like Sonia and I have always been like, there's a wide range of musical genres that we like, but during that time there was like a band called the Acorn that we were friends with from Canada and White Rabbits. And it's something that we've loved, kind of that whole kind of, it was a little bit happier back in those times.
Yeah, the music was a little lighter back then.
More folk influence. It was like more like indie rock crossed with Paul Simon. So that was kind of the vibe to begin with. And, you know, we started having practices, and right around that time, oddly enough, in Minneapolis was also when Palika was starting. So it was just really funny that there were 2 bands.
Yeah.
Too bad they couldn't get as popular as we ever did. But Max used to play with me in an old band that I was in, and Ben I've known for a very long time. And we lucked into whatever reason. We had Max, and Max was like, we should. He was hanging out with Ben separately, and he knew me, whatever else. He's like, we should ask Ben to play, and then just kind of clicked. And
yeah, I mean, like it was sort of a miracle because I feel like a lot of bands really struggle to find one amazing drummer, and here we are with 2. And like every time I'm at practice, I just look at them and I'm like, how did I get so lucky? How do I get to play with these amazing musicians? You know, it's incredible.
Ben, our main drummer, plays in a band called Self Evident from Minneapolis, which is like a really big math rock band, and he's really technical and went to school for like world percussion and such. And then Max, the other drummer who plays kind of more the secondary side, has more of a history of playing in like indie rock and punk bands, and he definitely plays more from the heart, but has like a very responsive and pensive, where he knows that he's not supposed to play all the time. So through the last 10 years, it's been really interesting to see them make their own musical dialogue.
Sort of like a 4-armed person at this point. It's incredible. Fun to watch.
Definitely.
That is the beauty of having a band for so long. I mean, I imagine you all are so intertwined at this point.
Absolutely, yeah. We were friends to start out with, but I mean, like this has brought us a lot closer too. And of course, having my partner in the band it's just so fun to have that outlet and to have these friendships that came out of it.
The only musical chair is it seems like every album has a different lead guitarist.
Yeah, we have a little bit of a curse in that department. It's worked out so far. I'm trying to meet some people along the way.
As long as it's not a spinal tap incident, like they all combust.
Yeah.
Well, it's fun to hear the 2 of you talk about the different songs because you clearly work very much together on it. Now, with something like this, do do you go song by song? Do you say, let's set out to do something like a journey? What?
I don't know. I don't think that we necessarily had a theme in mind until, we kind of stepped back and looked at maybe, I don't know how many songs, but maybe when the majority of the album was done, we kind of started to see it as a whole piece. And then I went back and kind of worked on some of the lyrics to really hone in on some of the stuff that I felt like it could be brought together a little tighter. But yeah, I think it's really just sort of more like, I happen to hear him playing something on the guitar that I find very intriguing. And I'm like, oh, keep doing that. That's really cool. And then I start humming a little melody over the top, and it kind of just like organically grows from there.
Or as a married couple, it's often stop playing that.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes that as well.
Mhm.
He's like so prolific. Sometimes I just need to be like, slow down, man. Take it easy.
We always joke about there's an old member of Lovely Dark who took time to make a pie chart over like wolves, fire, whatever else a reference, and he was like,
Yeah.
it can't just be about girls, can it?
Yeah,
So it's something
always
that-
gotta be about like snakes and wolves and plagues and yeah.
I think we're branched out more on this one, and it's definitely more less of that, but there's still, you can't separate the fable element of it, I think
Yeah.
there's always something with it.
Mhm. He's an English major, and I'm a classics minor, so there's a lot of this sort of like, I don't know, we love myths and we love ancient tales, and
And there's enough
big
people
nerds
writing
about
about girls,
Exactly. Yeah, there doesn't need to be another simple love song written by.
No,
Oh, yeah.
I'm an English major as well. A master's in Irish literature, which is why I could always
Oh,
get
wow.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, for that and a quarter, baby. But it does make sense. So I love the story aspect of it. I have to say, Hare Hunter Hound, it was such an intriguing song to me. And tell me about the perspective of the song.
That's a good question. Yeah, so it's kind of the trying to think of how to start. So I think of it, it's to me it really like paints a picture, and it's the idea of somebody like recently single, kind of out on the prowl, because we've always sort of been in that position where you're not necessarily picky, you're just like looking for something to kind of take your mind off the pain a little bit, and that's kind of what this song is about. Like just that sort of doesn't necessarily feel so good, but we're just like out to sort of forget the negative aspects of maybe a relationship that's past. I don't know if you want to add anything to that. I mean, like that's definitely the impression that I got from it. Maybe you have something else in mind.
No, it's like that was mainly it. The majority of that one was written by when our eldest was a baby, and I was downstairs programming drum beats and everything else downstairs. I was like, I feel kind of weird about this, but it was more of a left turn with it. So yeah.
Yeah. But I think we kind of both had like an image in mind, like a
Mhm.
scene in a movie almost, and then we just kind of tried to write into that scene. And that song for me, like I was always just sort of like, is this a Lovely Dark song? I don't know, but it was like when the last little bit of production was done, and he did most of like the final production tweaking stuff, I was just like, holy crap, this is perfect. This really does fit.
That's one that I fought for from the very beginning.
Yeah, nobody wanted it.
Yeah, and our bass player's often like, that's pretty good, but it might be one for you to hang up on your fridge.
Yeah,
So,
keep that one at home.
so that was one that was a little bit more of a slow burn, type of a feel compared to some of the other ones. So,
Yeah.
but I like the imagery in it. I like the lyrics, and I like that kind of just slinky menacingness of it. I like
Mhm.
so.
Yeah.
It's a gorgeous showcase for your voice. I will say that.
You. Yeah, I
But,
really love singing on that.
But then, yeah, it's good. But listening to it, I'm like, I don't know if I'm the hunter or the prey.
Yeah, well, that's kind of the idea. It's like sometimes we're both.
Yeah.
Sometimes we're both within the same night, And that I think is the
At the
idea.
same time, sometimes. Yeah. I mean, it's just,
Yeah.
So to hear the perspective, it was super interesting. Thank you.
I'm glad you fought for that one because it is a good one. I'm surprised it was one that was suggested to be on the fridge, and I like that. your writing seems so purposeful. Like you said, you know, it's not girls, girls, girls. And I didn't know if that is something when you just said something, is that a lovely dark song? What would you describe as what would be a lovely dark song?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Yeah, it's changed so much over time. I think that it's kind of hard to pin it down. But I don't know. For one thing, we have a really hard time writing songs that aren't a minor key feel.
The Fridge has a lot of major chord songs.
Yeah, we've
on
tried to
it.
write like happy songs. We've tried, and it always just seems very, I don't know, staged or fake or something. It's just not. I don't know. So we kind of leaned into like what feels like us and feels more genuine. But I guess like sort of dark and atmospheric is kind of our thing. And then with this one, we definitely went like louder and more bombastic as well.
This one.
Well, I guess, yeah. We've been doing that for a while, but I was just thinking about like Blackwell.
Yeah.
You know, that to me was like a louder, darker, scarier song than we've ever written before. So I don't know. It's like always evolving, but it always kind of still feels, I know it when I hear it, I guess is sort of how I would say.
It's hard to say. Like it's the curse of being like in certain bands is it's hard to find. Like we've been rejected a lot of times because we love your music, but it doesn't fit within this spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
So it's something that's like, unless you're straight indie rock, unless you're metal, whatever else. So like we often weave in between, and like we have a lot of influence from like world, folk, UK folk, pop, metal, and like it's all weaving together.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing that we've found is really hard is like often when we play shows, we're either the really loud band at a soft music night, or we're like the really soft music at a loud music night.
Yeah, we're
So-
somewhere kind of spreading the needle between those two.
So, and I guess the answer is we're a melting pot of music, but it's something that's usually interesting percussion-wise, but trying not to get too crazy with music or percussion where it detracts from just like a pop melody with a big hook.
Yeah, like we want it to be accessible. We want anybody to listen to it and find something in it. And maybe it's a little bit heavier than what they're used to listening to, or maybe it's a little bit quieter than what they're used to listening to. But and at the end of the day, I really want a song that somebody can hum the chorus, like it gets stuck in their head a little
As long
bit.
as like Pat Benatar, it's gonna be okay.
Yeah, I mean, Pat Benatar is like one of my heroes. So there's definitely a little Pat Benatar in each song for sure. Pat Benatar.
I was gonna say, I totally heard Pat Benatar, and then you kind of have, and I'm like, am I doing this because of my age? But I'm like, Pat Benatar with the edge of Joan Jett. You just have that little too.
Oh my God, that's like such a good compliment for me.
Oh, well, you should take it because it's spot on. I'm serious. And no, but I like the fact that you're the melting pot and you interweave all this. And I'm hoping that you guys get to see and recognize that people aren't just looking for just this now.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully.
Absolutely. Yeah. Definitely. It's hard to like find an audience when you're sort of in that, I don't know, when you're not one thing.
The liminal state.
Yeah, we're betwixt and between, much like Travis's tattoo. Yet again.
It is. I think that there's a big appetite for that, but it's hard to find or be found.
Exactly. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Precisely.
You know, there should be a better way for the algorithms to work. You know, there just should be.
Yeah.
Possibly a podcast featuring music.
There you go. That could be it. Well, I know, and Heather and I both love, and you know, the new band night at First Ever, something where there's going to be a whole range of different types of music, because so live music is always a great way to. But of course, we've been a little shut out of that for a while.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And he's definitely like a recording studio guy. Like that's where he shines and like where he wants to be and live in that world. But for me, it's all about live, like just being on stage. Like that's to me where the music really happens. And I miss that so much, you know, but we're making it work.
That's good. Yeah. Well, and because you mentioned that you have small children, you're in a precarious position as well as doing a lot of live music.
Yeah. We've had a lot of helpful friends and parents kind of get us through it, you know, and show up and babysit. And yeah, it's definitely taken a village for us.
especially right now. She's talking about with COVID. With
Oh yeah, definitely too. I mean, we're doubly cautious because of that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But we're hoping that we'll get to see you at some point because it's really been the album was delightful. I mean, and the art and really you got to think about a way to animate the whole thing.
There you go. That's a new challenge for him. He loves the challenge, so there you go.
I mean, the art. It is such a good fit. It's such a good.
I
fit.
agree.
Thank you.
It
Yeah.
is.
It's I tried limiting myself with 3 colors, and then there's one image that's repeated throughout it. Was a show. One of the first shows that we played out of town was at our drummer Ben at his parents' place. They have this big festival where they have a huge fireworks display where it just litters everything with like fireworks. Where as a band we laid out in a field and the fireworks went over
Yeah,
the
and we
top
got
of
like
us.
pelted by shrapnel.
And so there's a picture I took from that night.
It was great.
So no, usually I think in every single image that there is, there's the same shot from that fireworks display that's repeated throughout that as well too.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the only thing that isn't like the true red, tan, or black colors in it. It's just that one image.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna look at it again.
Just
Because now knowing that, it must have been for Shears where you've got the picture of the woman cutting her hair and then the hair becomes a snake and it's just the way some of the imagery in the songs kind of goes from one to the other too. It's
Nailed it.
nailed it. Yeah, it's spectacular. It's spectacular. It is. So tell folks who are listening, tell them how they can find you online and what's available online yet and what's yet to come, and we kind of get sneaky peeks of things.
Yeah.
I'm looking at you because I've been.
We have we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, and we update rarely on there though. We're on Bandcamp, we're on Amazon Music, iTunes.
So Spotify is probably one of the best.
Spotify is probably one of the best spots to find us, and we try to put up some of our favorite playlists of different bands and stuff like that too, influences
Nice.
and other weird kind of like
Yeah.
weird melting pot. So that's a good spot to find us and follow us there.
Yeah, definitely.
And do you have a website?
Lovelydark.com. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Keep it easy.
And then Instagram, we try talking a little bit more in depth with each song. This is a way of trying to have something out there right now too. So.
Yeah, kind of a mini blog.
Can I ask about one other thing that you were involved in? Was it the Motherfest?
Oh yeah, yeah. That I can't even remember. When was that? 2018? Yeah, I put that together. It was kind of just like I had my daughter, and I kind of had this period of time where I was sort of like trying to figure out, what my passions were and what was really worth my time. And I got back into music, and it was just like, oh my God, this feels so good. But it's so hard, I need to find my people. And so I got really passionate about like bringing together other mother musicians, just kind of to showcase, all the talent of women that have children and still manage to make music, and like show that we can be more than just moms. I mean, being a mom is more than enough, but like, every mom isn't just a mom. She's got a lot going on. And so it was just a chance to showcase like that creativity and like that commitment to stay creative, even when you have a child, it's hard. And it was super fun. And we got an amazing lineup. And we had it at the Hook and Ladder, which was an awesome venue. And it was a ton of work, but it was a labor of love. It was super fun. And I would have loved to have made it like a yearly thing, but it was just like trying to take that much on was intense. So maybe it'll come back in the future after pandemic times are over.
Yeah, I feel like there'll be a lot of material all those moms will be picking up during the time. I was going to say, I'm kind of envious of your soon to be 6-year-old of being schooled by you two, because I'm like, I kind of want to join in on class tomorrow or whatever.
We have a lot of fun for sure.
Great. Well, I'll be showing up tomorrow.
Cool, yeah. A lot of interesting lessons going on. There's like a little witchcraft thrown in for sure.
As well, there should be.
Interesting. Yeah.
So there should be. Well, thank you both so much for talking to us, for having such a great album, and we'll look for opportunities to see you play live. But until then, we can enjoy the music that's coming out, the music they've already put out. So thank you for your time.
Definitely.
Thank you so much
Yeah.
for listening.
And thanks to you both for just trying to do this to elevate musicians in Minneapolis and everything too. Like, it's a lot of work. We appreciate it. Everyone else appreciates it, I'm sure. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.